All right, good day, everyone. Welcome to today's presentation, Plan Your Work and Work Your Plan, an action plan to prefabrication and profit. Say that 3 times fast. Sponsored by Trimble. My name is Colleen Beatty, and I'm the senior editor here at Electrical Contractor Magazine. And on behalf of the magazine, I'd like to welcome you to this presentation and thank you for attending. Now, before we get started, I just want to quickly go over some housekeeping items. First, please note that today's presentation is being recorded and we'll be providing you with a link to the recording after the webinar is over. So if you miss anything or you have to sign off a little bit early, don't worry, you can come back at any time and watch the recording when it works for you. The audio for today's presentation should be coming through your computer speakers or headphones. If you have any technical difficulties, audio or otherwise, you can reach out to us using the Q&A panel and we'll help you out. The Q&A panel is on the bottom right of your screen. And finally, we of course encourage your participation in the webinar. So please send us your questions. You can submit them at any time during the presentation using the Q&A module on the bottom right of your screen, and we'll save some time at the end of the webinar to answer them. There's also a quick survey that should pop up on your screen at the end of the webinar, and we hope you'll fill that out. Or if you'd like to fill out a little bit sooner, you can just click the blue-green icon with a little clipboard on it at the bottom of your screen to open it up. Now, with all of that out of the way, I'd like to give a warm welcome to today's speakers, Doug Elliott, Judy Miller, and David Keene from Trimble. Doug has been involved in MEP construction for the past 22 years. He started designing and detailing in 3D CAD for HVAC and later moved into fire suppression, fire alarm, and electrical for consulting engineers in Denver, Colorado. Doug currently is a product manager for the MEP division of Trimble within the building construction segment, and he is leading the SysQ team. He has been with Trimble since 2010. Judy is Trimble's BDC software sales engineer and has been in the MEP design and construction industry for 30 years. She worked as an MEP designer for 20 years, spent 10 years as a BIM manager, and has been with Trimble for the last 5 years. She's also been the SysQ product manager and product specialist. And finally, Dave is Trimble's MEP senior sales leader. He's a construction industry veteran with over 18 years of experience in leadership roles at MEP contracting firms. For the past 9 years, he has brought his passion for operational excellence in prefabrication, estimating, project management, and construction financials to help Trimble MEP clients achieve field office synergy and transform their business operations. So welcome, Doug, Judy, and Dave.
Thanks, Colleen. That was a mouthful. Appreciate the introduction. So let us, first off, we can look at the poll results. Looks like a lot of camping and chilling by the pool. So that looks like a fun way to spend the weekend, and glad to be back.
I think we should add all the above on that one, Dave.
Yeah, I know. I wish you could stretch it out a little bit more. I don't know where the summer went.
Yep.
So I'm going to skip forward past the introductions and get ourselves to here. So I'd like to kick us off at a point where we can look at some of the fundamental problems that face electrical contractors every day and talk about the way these challenges guide us here at Trimble. So this study was done by FMI, and take a look at those 3 pie charts. First, 96% of all construction or all data being unused in the process, 13% of your work hours and time being spent looking for context and project data to do your job, and 30% of the time using applications that don't talk to one another. And bear in mind that is for electrical and engineering and construction. When you get into electrical contracting specifically, and you introduce all the different roles and things that people have to do, I think those numbers get quite a bit higher. I've heard studies that say 30% of the time you spend your working hours looking for information. So it gets pretty important when you're looking at estimating in the project acquisition phase and giving it over to your project management team. It gets even more so when you introduce the project team to it. You begin fabrication and procurement and trying to make material flow through all this stuff. Look at all those networks of communication that need to be tied together. It's pretty challenging. The most important ones might be the ones in the red line there. That have a strict bearing on the cost fabrication of it. it gets to be a challenge, and it's really hard to manage, to be honest with you. So that's kind of the roles that guide us here at Trimble. And the way we look at this wheel of the different apps, we feel we're uniquely positioned to do this well because we already have the industry-leading fabrication estimating solutions out there. When you look at, pardon me here, we're widely known for Accubid Estimating, Change Order Pro, Viewpoint, ERP and Accounting, Supplier Exchange for Procurement, and Siskiyou for Modeling and Fabrication, robotic total stations, 3D laser scanners, and the XR10 HoloLens. It really circles all the way around the wheel there in terms of the point solutions that we provide. But hopefully where we shine is the ability to connect those dots and use Trimble Connect as a hub to all of these different workflows. So Connect is an app that does a lot of things. At its highest level, it's a model viewer, regardless of whatever app, CAD or Revit, that the model was authored in. You can view it in Trimble Connect. And aside from that, it's a great file distribution platform, a little bit like Dropbox, except of course the model viewing capabilities makes it a lot better. And then besides that, it becomes an issue tracker that your team can communicate with to get their jobs done. So to pick a simple example, questions that you might ask yourself, like, are we approved for a change order to do that work on the 4th floor? If so, it's going to change the quantities of material that I need delivered on Monday. What's the date of the switchgear delivery? That's holding us up. If we don't have it by X date, the consequence is going to be this. These are things that you can use Trimble Connect to interact with between the foreman at your shop and field and the manager and the procurement folks, anybody on the team involved at all. You can answer those questions in a data logged format and distribute that information around and log what the answer is, when it was resolved, and even the construction progress, which we'll get into a little bit later. So keep that in mind as we go through this a little bit. We'll talk about that a little bit more later, but another study that I think deserves a mention here is this one by McKinsey & Company, and it's required reading for us here at Trimble, and it guides a lot of our development because it outlines a lot of things that are undergoing change in the industry right now. So it's a very complex study, but I'd summarize it like this. Construction is finally getting to the point where technology is able to affect the bottom line and the workflows in it. We know that it's changed our lives tremendously when you look at technologies that you use every day, like Netflix and all the cell phone apps and Amazon and things like that. But has it really changed the profitability of electrical contractors? Not so much, but it's definitely having that effect now and going forward over the next 10 years. That's what the study outlines. It talks about 9 shifts in the industry that are going to affect the way that construction is performed. We're going to check out 2 of them specifically today and talk about it, and that is productization of your work scope, reducing it into small, bite-sized assembly line type manufacturing processes, and digitization of your processes, where you can track things all the way through from beginning to end and report on them. Another big thing that this study outlines is that the transformation will involve a reallocation of who gets paid to do what in the industry. So $1 trillion is going to be reallocated to the contractors who actually do the work. A lot of it is going to be at the expense of CMs and engineers. And this reallocation of money is going to be for certain ones who can add more value to the project, specifically by doing a lot of this productization, by being able to prefab offsite, being able to control their inventory and operate fast enough to keep up with this. What's at stake is $1 trillion of revenue for contractors. And even after the people who are well down this road already take their share of it, that's going to be every bit of $265 billion that is up for grabs to contractors who may not be doing any of the things that we talk about today. That is the prize that is at stake here if you reach for that, to reinvent yourselves and turn yourself into more of a manufacturing contractor. So what that looks like graphically, this image is borrowed from that McKinsey study, is that the status quo today is too often every project is run, has its own life, and there's not a lot of repetition. They're executed from design to procurement, fabrication, delivery, and the construction of it. is one-off almost every single time. There's not enough repetition. Every project bears its own layers and processes. And if you have a great A team doing a project, you're probably going to get a very different result from a C team. And of course, still too much of the work is being done off-site. What the new normal is going to look like is to install durable processes that will make every project feed into this service, where your processes will dominate and repeatability will happen, and every process from estimating to procurement, fabrication, and all logistics of prefab delivery and installation, it gets to be repeatable, so that jobs get executed a lot more economically with a lot higher quality. And that is what's at stake for those who want to reach for that $265 billion in revenue. It'll look a lot like this. So at this point, let's take a poll and ask, what are the top priorities for sustaining and growing your business among these choices? So what do you view as the top things that you must do as an electrical contractor to stabilize yourself and position yourself for the future? We'll take a couple minutes here and give you a chance to answer this poll question, and then we'll take a look at the results. All right, let's take a look. So 75% increased prefabrication and 25% model-based estimating. Okay, good. So that's very good. That'll be very closely in line to what we can talk about today. So this is the agenda for today. We'll talk about 5 things here under the umbrella of productizing and digitizing. First, we'll begin with very specific and granular ways that you can productize construction, which is essentially prefabrication and the logistics behind it, and then digitizing your workflow, being able to translate information from a model to an estimate, from a model to procurement, and from field progress to management. So let us begin. All right, so first off, we're going to drill down into a lot more granular detail into the ways that electrical contractors can accomplish this. For productizing, the first topic that we'll take up is assemblies. So assemblies are the lifeblood of estimates and fit outs of spaces. Sorry, I'm talking a little bit here. Let me kick it over to Judy. And Judy, how can electrical contractors productize their work to the degree where they can make assemblies that look like this, track it throughout its process? Can you walk through the difference between what a design model looks like and what you may bid from to the time it takes form like this on a construction project?
Sure. So in AccuBid, in the estimating product, you can create assemblies in there. So if they feed that information over to the VDC team, we'll show you how to take that information and build electrical in-wall assemblies, such as what you see on the screen there, into your Revit model so that you can repetitively place those. And of course, get the information out of it as to, what box, what mud ring, everything else. So we put together a quick little video to show you the difference between what's in Revit today and what we can do to enhance that process to save you money in your prefab of assemblies.
All right, can you walk us through that, Judy, what that looks like here in the live view?
Sure.
Judy, we can't hear you.
I'm trying to see the video, and I'm not seeing the video. Okay, there we go. All right, sorry. So what we showed you at the beginning there was What we showed you there at the beginning was what Revit has out of the box, which is very basic, right? And now we're putting together electrical assemblies within Siskiyou. So you're picking the, not only the stud plate or the plate that you're using, the box that you're using, what devices are going to go into each box, the symbology for those as well, so in a 2D plan versus a 3D plan. And the elevation also, so when you place these assemblies, you're going to put those directly into the model at the correct elevation as well. So again, you see it there in the 3D view. It looks a lot different than what's in the Revit view, right? Your box is not sitting on the face of the wall. It's in the wall like it should be. You can move the symbology around as necessary as well. When you change from a coarse view to a medium view, you still see that same graphics, where in Revit, when you change to a medium view, you get the 2D symbology in the 2D plan, but your conduit goes to a single line. So again, this is just an image of what your assemblies will look like as far as details go. And then, you have a schedule. You have a Revit schedule that you can sort by room number, you can sort by device type, and it's going to give your prefab department all the information of the pieces and parts that they need to put together. Bundle it, by room number or however you do it, and then drop it off at the site. So it makes a clean drawing for you.
Yeah, that sure is a clean drawing, and certainly everything you need to fabricate every assembly on that floor. So that's awesome. One of the other biggest gates to productization of Revit models is that the baseline tools to draw electrical work in Revit just isn't fast enough. It creates just enough friction in the process to give people pause on whether or not they have the bandwidth to model jobs. And when they don't, they lose some of that opportunity to productize and digitize. Can you walk us through some of the technical tools that add more speed and accuracy to the process of modeling?
Sure. So we have different productivity tools, right? You can do import and export parameters as you wish. You can create your views to be, sorry, I keep losing this. Okay. So in this particular video, what we're showing here is modeling with rigid conduit. We have a stub 90 that you can place along with your conduit. Dave, is the video playing?
Yep.
Because I'm not seeing it, sorry. It puts a stub 90 in automatically, and the couplings, you can place a T with the reducing bushing if you're changing conduit size. You can rotate that fitting as well, and then create spool drawings out of it, so your prefab. All the information is going to be there for you to help your shop out with whatever it is that they need.
All right.
So we're rolling the video here, and what Judy's showing is we had modeled the conduit with the stub 90s, and then what we're showing now is when we tee off some of that conduit, Revit would normally place that generic J-box there, but what we do with our application Siskiyou is we put in the LB or the T there with automatic reducers in it, as you can see right there in the video. Judy's going to pick these for us. So without any extra thought, we're modeling real-world stuff with our LBs. We're adding clearances to those if we need to keep that side clear. We also have flip grips on those. She's got an LB there. We can flip an LB. So for 3D coordination and real-world parts procurement, we have it right there. And then there's that reducing bushing that we automatically placed to go from looks like 2-inch to 1-inch conduit, or similar. And then also some other part of the speed tools is what we're seeing here is we can easily rotate those objects.
Awesome. So thanks for the overview, guys. So then aside from that, when it comes to modeling conduit bends and things that need to be fabricated in the shop, we get the luxury of talking to thousands of electrical subs in any given year. And in my experience anyway, conduit fabrication is the single biggest opportunity most identify to expand their prefab or aspire to for beginners. Again, though, the technical limits and modeling tools are sometimes the obstacles to productizing this conduit fab. What are some of the families that we've built for Revit and workflows that we've made to best optimize the chance to prefab more and more conduit, guys?
Okay, so what we've done is include 4-point saddles, 3-point saddles, stub 90, and the offset family to make it easier for modeling, like I showed in the first video there about the stub 90 to make it easier for prefabrication.
Okay, can you walk us through some of the different set families and what goes into building them?
So as you're seeing there, you're going to go with the 2-point offset. So the 2-point offset is going to, we have a different family for each of those saddles and offsets, hand bend and machine bend, because your marks are going to be in a different location. Your hand bend is going to be limited in size as well. You're certainly not going to bend a 2-inch pipe with a hand bend. So what these are giving you here, you place them in your model, adjust your offset, you adjust your height that you want to go around. And then on the right-hand side of that drawing, and I realize it's hard to see in a video, but on the right-hand side gives you your mark A, your mark B, and what angles you're using to bend. The next example is going to be the 3-point saddle. So again, exactly, same functionality, right? You got your offset, your end to the center of your obstacle in this case, your width and your height. The machine bend and hand bend. So on the right-hand side, of course, you're adding a dimension to that. So you're adding A, B, C, and then your angles. All of these, by the way, and it gives you the finished length at the end. All of these, by the way, have the finished length of your conduit. So they're all based on a 10-foot stick of conduit. So if you try to go beyond that 10 feet, it's going to give you a message because they're all designed to be maintained in that 10-foot length. Now, if you're buying 20-foot, you can certainly change your values to 20 as well. So the 4-point, again, you're just adding another dimension to it. So now you're at mark A, B, C, and D. We factored in the shrink, the take up, the bend angle, the lead. All of that's being done behind the scenes so that your shop doesn't have to do the math, right? It's all about getting it out quick and being accurate. So stub 90, very minimal information, right? You can define what you want your stub length to be. When you add it to the palette, it's going to have what your minimums are. But if your company wants to do a larger minimum, say 24-inch stub, instead of what the very minimum is, you can set that up automatically. So every time it places it with a 24-inch stub, for example. Again, the schedule is going to give you stub length from the back of the bend to the end. It's going to give you lead length from the back to the end. You can flip this, by the way, as well. So if you needed it to go in a different orientation, you can flip it like you did with the LBs, and it's going to give you the mark value as well.
Great. All right. So now we have a pretty good picture of how a model is made to be fabrication ready, and it's not just a pretty picture. When it comes time to package it up and productize the work for the shop and field users, walk us through what some of these outputs look like, Judy.
Yeah, so as you're creating your fabrication drawings in SysView, what it's doing is, you're assigning each drawing a drawing number. And we have a view template that you can utilize in a plan view or a 3D view that's going to color all those components on each particular spool drawing a color. So the spool map view that you see on the screen makes it easy for your shop to see how things are going together, as well as when it gets out in the field. They'll see these pieces and know how it goes together, kind of like an erector set, right? In addition to that, we can do, prefabrication drawings for hangers, because, hangers is really low-hanging fruit, right? You can put these out rather quickly. With ours, the rod lengths are going to go to the slab or the steel above, so you know what the accurate rod lengths are. So in this case, whether it's a multi-tier or a single tier or back-to-back hanger, trapeze, you can tell it how many to build. You can renumber those so that your parameters are equal for the same hanger, for example, instead of giving them a different number for each one. And they have a quantity to build. They know what the strut length is. They know what the rod diameter is, what rod length 1, rod length 2. Say you're on a sloped slab, for example, that you're connecting to, they would be different. How many nuts, how many washers, and in the multi-tier one, if you have multiple tiers turned on, it's going to actually give you a total strut length to build that entire hanger based on the number of racks that you have turned on.
Awesome.
Okay. Another example, again, is with just creating a fabrication drawing for conduit, and it's really based on what you select for that particular drawing. So once you select it and you apply the template that we provide for you, you're going to get views. They're going to be tagged in the schedule. It's going to give you, in this case, it's rigid, so it's going to be threaded. It's not going to be bent. So you've got your cut lengths for your conduit. We know what the engagement is on all of those fittings, and that's been incorporated in those fittings. So your cut lengths are going to be accurate, and your parts list is complete.
All right. So how about wire reporting?
Yeah, so wire reporting, we have the functionality of adding wire to your conduit, and you can do it in two different manners. One is just a wire fill kind of concept for feeders, for example. The second way is to assign panels and circuits to your conduit. Both of those options, if you apply wire to your conduit, we're going to be checking to make sure you don't exceed a 40% fill in your conduit, because we know what wires you're putting in there and the sizes of those. Also, you're going to be able to get this report, and in the report, in our families, we have an added wire length parameter in there. So not only are you going to get your conduit length, but you're going to get a wire length based on those added wire length parameters that you need. It's going to tell you what color conductors, grounds, and neutrals you need. And it's also checking to make sure that you don't exceed your maximum bend angle as well. So if your job is 360, it's going to tell you if you exceed that. If if your job requirement is 270, it's going to tell you if you exceed that as well. It does that during modeling, but we also have a code check option where you can just select your runs and check them after you've done changes to it, for example.
All right, great. So you and Ron King, our colleague, prepared a pretty cool explanation of the workflow from beginning to end. Can you walk us through that, what it looks like on this video?
Okay, so here I took the 4-point saddle. We had an area in the building that we needed to go around a column. We were running conduit down the side of the wall there. So we, took advantage of the bend radius, the leads, and all the values that we put into these saddles. So if you just click on the conduit that you have placed, say you've got to cut out a 10-foot section of conduit that you place your saddles in there, adjust your end to the edge of the obstacle like we talked about, adjust your width and your height of your obstacle. Notice that, the conduits don't connect anymore because it's shorter, obviously, than 110 inches or 10 feet, right? So we give you the mark values, A, B, C, and D, like we talked about. since we've done this video, we've also added the angles to the schedule. So what Ron's doing here is we've simulated, and by the way, you can see that with a HoloLens too, we simulated where those saddles are going to fit on the wall. Okay, so Ron took the drawing, as you see here, laid conduit on the table, which is how it's all designed to be, and just start putting those marks on the conduit with a Sharpie and a tape measure so that he can start bending that 4-point saddle with, I think he's using the Greenlee triple nickel bender. But he's going to just put those marks in there and then just start bending. So Ron's pretty fast at this. He's been doing it for years. You'll see that he just, you know, zips right through this, obviously. We made it go a little bit faster for this presentation. I'm just making a joke that he's fast. But, you know, he has been bending conduit for years, lines the marks up with the shoe, bends the conduit, and then you'll see that he takes it back over to the building and places it right in place. Now, he did this also for a hand bend, so we gave him the values for the hand bend for the same conduit, and you see he's got both of those laying on the floor. They both align with each other. The blue line is the simulation. He's going to place that into the coupling, and it goes nicely around the column. So what you're placing in your model with these saddles, what you're placing in the model is what's actually going to be built and placed in the building.
Dave, I think you're muted. Dave, you're muted.
Sorry, folks, a little technical difficulty. Let's give Dave a minute to come back. Dave, can you hear us?
Oh, can you hear me now?
There you are. There you are.
All right, pardon, I don't know what happened there. All right, so let's roll a poll question at this time. So when you go to procure materials, what is the source of the majority of your procurement? Is it project estimates, lists from your field or management team, or the model itself? Let's take a minute and ask that question and see what the results come back. Okay, so looks like a quarter of it from the estimate, 62 or 3% from the lists that are created by the field team, and then model-based procurement, 12.5%. So interesting. So we'll look at that in the next couple of workflows and see if there's any opportunity to look at that for you guys. All right, so now let's take a look at some of the digitization of workflows, beginning with change management and model-based estimating. So we'll look at transporting information from app to app or role to role within your organization and hopefully eliminate some redundant work. Doug, we get approached by customers all the time asking how we can better resolve the cost of models compared to the estimate, or how to generate a change order proposal or addendum from the model. Can you walk us through some of those use cases and workflows?
Sure, you bet, Dave. I've got a slide up there right now showing us our quantity. Just run us through some use cases for model-based estimating, from quantity comparisons to improving future bid accuracy. And, you know, a lot of times we have our original estimate. When we get our model, some things model-based estimating is a really good application for is a forensic estimate to compare, you know, what is modeled now to what our bid price was. So we can see, you know, how do we compare to our original bid versus what's been modeled and coordinated. And it just helps us better understand the project, which is in turn, like our top one at the top right there says, is going to provide us some more accurate project execution for future projects. So you're going to be able to use model-based estimating to get your final quantities, materials, and buyouts, which we're going to look at the bottom left one, finalized BOM for procurement here shortly, as well as value engineering. I can model a couple options in Revit Syscube and then send those to model-based estimating, our estimation MEP product, and get a quick, accurate price between option A and option B, as well as change orders. If we want to do some change orders, what does that look like, and what are those change orders going to cost us? Just by modeling it, we can easily get a price for those. So let's go ahead and go to our next slide here. So how does all this work? Well, what you're seeing on the screen here is we've talked about our Trimble Syscube, which runs on the Revit platform. And then we mentioned briefly our new digital web-based estimating called Estimation MEP. That's in the center there. So what we do is we take from our model, we publish it directly to Estimation MEP, and then we're able to get accurate things out of there like our catalog numbers, pricing, labor, and all that from our industry-leading content that we have there. So the content that we can match from our model to Estimation MEP is what's going to power that workflow for us here. And let's take a look at that. I'm going to go ahead and run a video here. So what you're seeing is a model of a typical fourth floor commercial office building. We're looking at the power and the teledata plan. So the green's the teledata, the blue's the power. We have some feeder conduit in there as well. But what we want to do is we want to buy out our fourth floor conduit. So in this example here, we're windowing in all the conduit for the fourth floor. I'm going to filter it down just to our conduit and our fittings. And then we're going to send that to model-based estimating. So by clicking on the model-based estimating icon, it allows us to define a few work breakdown structures here. So project name, drawing name, and then soon we're going to have a few more work breakdowns that we can define. But you'll notice when I hit apply here, that schedule is going to get created. It's called EC2. And there, that schedule is created in our project browser. We're going to go ahead and open up that schedule. You can see it here. We have column A that shows that project name, column B shows the drawing name, and then column C is going to show the system that we've assigned from Syscube. And then the column with the checkboxes in it, if it's checked, it means that it's found a link to our building data. It's building data content that's been linked to Syscube. And the ones that aren't checked are more generic content that we've modeled. So just by a simple click here, we're going to take this schedule, we're going to click on Publish, and we just sent that to the cloud, Estimation MEP. So I'm here at Estimation MEP, and I'm going to rename my estimate to something that's a little more human-friendly than machine-friendly with the timestamp on it. But that estimate was created for us automatically. There's nothing that I had to do or what have you. Just by sending that schedule from Syscube, we get the estimate here in Estimation MEP. So Estimation MEP is our new web-based estimating platform, and that's what we're looking at here. Over on the left, we've got some navigation items, and then we're seeing that audit trail that we had from our Syscube model. Again, that first column where it says trade service are those ones that have the checkbox checked in our schedule, meaning it found a link to our building data. And then you saw the breakdowns there for power and such for systems. And then from our summary, we took that whole, just that fourth floor, there's literally hundreds of lines in our audit trail. We boiled it down here to our summary of just what that is, and then we're going to export that out to a BOM or bill of material. And once I've done that, I'm going to send that data downstream to my project manager, which, Dave, that's you. So take it from here.
Yeah, so given the commodity price of copper, if you're looking at what trade service tracks us in the front of our website, it's obviously very volatile, and it's gone up just about double from in that time interval of over the spring. So it's really important to manage materials and don't maybe take your cost data from the bid model. So what we're doing here is importing this list into trade service where we can get real-time pricing from our local vendor that derived from the model. So I'm creating an import list, sucking in that Excel file that Doug created out of Syscube, and trade service does a great job at matching it. So it recognizes these items, and I can now save that list, and it will pull it up on a dashboard here that gives me information about all of it. It could be stuff like the labor values, the submittal cut sheets, MSDS if applicable, and the catalog page, and it'll tell you, you can drill into it and say, this is exactly what I want. If I need to know if I need to substitute it or not, it'll tell you country of origin and things like that. So when I'm ready to send it to procurement, I can give it a job name and number, any tagging information that I'll need to use to verify it. And then I can select distributors that I can send it to for quotes. So I'm personally not connected to any supply houses, but we have a couple sample vendors set up here that I can show you. But when you do it, you'll be running it against your local suppliers in whatever region, city you're at. And then it goes through and tells you who, out of who's quoting it, who's the most competitive, and is everything a dead match or is it an alternate, so that you can consider maybe lower priced alternates, or maybe you'll decide that you can't. It needs to be domestic or whatever. You're not going to accept any alternates. So you go through that matching process here, verify it. You can either cherry pick the lowest cost and split the order, or pick one vendor based on price, delivery, and overall best value, and place the order from there. So that is the workflow from deriving in the model to estimating it to turning around and procuring it.
And we say just there, Dave, but what we just saw there, that's definitely getting people part of that $265 billion pie if they're following those workflows. So
yeah, it's certainly better than the status quo, which is generally very manual, right? Obviously, it's usually tapping and interrupting somebody from what they're doing. Hey, can you crank this through and estimate it for me? Hey, can you make a list out of this? We saw from the survey results that a lot of people are still getting field lists to turn around and manually price. There's a lot of steps saved by doing this workflow. So that kind of is a good segue into other things that you can do with Trimble Connect. In terms of communication between detailers, managers, foremen, shop folks, how does Connect contribute to that? Most of all the intelligence that Judy showed us and that we looked at here is in Revit. How is it that it can be liberated out for everybody else to use as well? Can you walk us through that, Doug?
Sure, I can walk you through part of it, because actually any one of these topics, we could probably put a whole webinar together just for the topic. But let's dive into Trimble Connect a little bit. So what we're seeing here, you guys can read the slide here. Up at the top right, we have a graphic that Trimble Connect, it really is that hub, like Dave showed in the slide. We had all those disjointed workflows of data flowing from here to there. And then when we have Trimble Connect in the middle, pushing data out and bringing data in to the right people at the right time, we have different ways we could do that. We have Trimble Connect it comes in a web, a desktop, and a mobile version. So you get that on your phone, you get that on your tablet. We also have it for the XR10 HoloLens. We have Trimble Connect Desktop Sync, which we can use Connect Desktop Sync even with SysQ to sync our content and other pertinent SysQ information between all of our detailers. So it's all about liberating that digital intelligence that we have in our Revit models. And instead, like you showed in the graphic earlier, there's just so much. We put that data in that's not used ever again. And that's what Trimble Connect is doing. It's liberating that data for us. And we can send that data downstream. We can also use Trimble Connect as a go-between between other Trimble applications. And then our clients can use Trimble Connect as for the one source of truth for managing their projects. So as we push that downstream, it's not just the detailers that have this information, where we're pushing it down to the purchasing agent, the project manager, the build foreman, the shop foreman, and they can just do a ton of things with this stuff. They can get construction progress reports. They can do fabrication, detailing, and spooling with our Connect to Fab app that we're coming out with shortly. And they can use data tables to organize lists into reports that they could export out from there and procure. You also get views, you get clash detection, and then you have a way to easily federate models in Connect as well. So, you have your detailer working in SysQ and Revit and then pushing that data downstream, and we can publish models to Trimble Connect, and they don't have to just be Revit models. You can publish DWG, you can publish from a number of other, the standard CAD applications in just about any format up to Trimble Connect. And with just a few simple clips, you can view those models all together. So here we're seeing our steel, our plumbing, our piping, our electrical, and our HVAC all in one view. And you don't have to be a CAD guru to get that to happen. Just a few clicks and there's your model federated, ready to go. And then from that federated view, we can then find areas of the model. Like here, I wanted to ask someone in the field to go ahead and field verify our equipment clearances. So by creating a to-do, when I say this as a view, it remembers everything that was set, all the models that we had federated. So when I give this to-do to, say, Dave or Judy, they don't have to worry about recreating, oh, gee, he was viewing the structural model, he was viewing this other model, and this other model together. It just instantly happens, takes you right to this point in the model, and then you can track the response to this to-do. So, it's not about using emails or text or anything like that. It's all here, one source of truth, where we can track these to-dos, we can track progress on the project, and we know what's going on because we can see it happening here. So after to-dos, we're in our coordinated model, and we're now going to use Connect to manage the install in the field. So Dave, I'll kick it over to you.
All right. Yeah, I love that. Dimensioning markup, tagging your colleagues for action items, that's all very efficient. So the next thing we're going to look at is, this is a tablet view here. So I'm opening up a Revit model and updating progress. Purposes for this could be to compare your field progress against your cost report, or to check deadlines or establish a timeline of when things got done. So what you're seeing is, when you open it up, Trimble Connect has a status app that gives you a special view where it's going to use color codes to explain project status. So I'm a foreman trying to respond back with what got done today, so that a project manager doesn't have to drive out to the job site and see for himself. This could save a lot of time. So what I'm doing is just highlighting, touching every element to identify it. Yep, this all got done today, giving it a status, complete, and then everybody on the project team gets to see what got done and when. And Doug, what does that look like from the desktop?
Either I'm in the job trailer or I'm back at the office, and I open up the same Trimble Connect, and I see what my field foreman had just updated. So again, I could even be on my tablet on the job site as well and still see this stuff. So literally anywhere, I'll be able to get this progress. And so from that timeline, my guy in the field created this stuff and made a timeline here for me. I could see what was completed where. We had our pad poured. We did some hangers. We got our transformer in panels installed. And then, as you saw what Dave did, as we go a little further in our timeline, we're showing that we took those conduits and got those installed as well. And then we can set it up so it plays itself. Usually we think of these timelines for architectural and civil workflows, but we can easily apply these to MEP and see that play out from the pad being poured, hangers being hung, cure time on that pad, and so on. So really powerful stuff there.
Awesome. All right. So with that, I wanted to wrap up a little bit and talk about digitizing the workflows again. In terms of digitizing the workflows, the number one advice that I always think is to free yourself and your teammates, like you said, Doug, from the job issues and having communication funneled through texts, emails, phone calls, voicemails, and so on. All of those are static, dead end. They don't provide feedback loops or accountability. So I think that one of the best things that you can do to open up communication in your company is to seek out a system like this that's scalable enough to manage the nuances of fabrication and transactional data, yet simple enough for everybody to use. The best technology unused is not effective at all. So we really feel that Trimble Connect does this better than anything else on the market. And then in terms of productization, it is it's a lot easier said than done to actually execute on it. The key elements are having data and workflows that are architected in the beginning to carry information and links to the workflow that other people are going to be doing with different software downstream, so that it can be harvested in a day or a week whenever you do need it. That's a little bit more tricky than it sounds. The currency, if you will, in all of these exchanges is the raw data itself. Sometimes it's the Revit family, sometimes it's the trade service cost or the labor value that is carried in the background. So contractors should really do well to seek technology partners who understand this and how to make it all work together and build their solutions into it, because otherwise that burden could fall to yourself. And it's pretty tricky to stand up in the first place, and if you can, to maintain it on an ongoing basis. So we kind of feel pretty well positioned that we are a good partner to do that here at Trimble. A couple of things about Trimble for those who don't already know it. We're a S&P 500 company traded on NASDAQ. But one of the things I like the most is the fact that the research and development, that we spend almost $500 million in research and development to keep developing and working on workflows that make some of these things happen. When you get into just the MEP segment, we're close to 1,000 people on the MEP section when you include contractors. And I just can't think of another company that has that much electrical DNA, know-how, and investment in the industry. So I feel kind of like very proud to work on some of these developments, and I really think that good things come out of this kind of looking at it holistically. So one of the ways that we go to market is by bundles. All of our solutions now are bundled, where we're taking the approach that everything that would be good for a user, in this case a detailer, is bundled together in one subscription. This one is called VDC Pro Plus, and all the demonstration materials that you saw today was accomplished using Siskiyou and Trimble Connect in this instance. What Siskiyou is this add-in to Revit that provides all the utility and speed tools for Revit that are electrical specific that Judy walked you through, and then also the families themselves that are all brand and part specific, that are cost loaded with NECA labor rates and pricing, and that it's just a very electrical centric way of modeling in Revit. So with that, hopefully people are queuing up questions. Why don't you send your questions into the Q&A? And while we do that, let's just go through a couple of comments that some of our customers shared about their experiences working with Siskiyou. This one is from Andrew at Interstates, and he talks about how much faster they can generate details and how much documentation gets reduced and simplified by using Siskiyou. The next one is from Ash at Sprague Electric in California, and he shares with us how much time gets saved and therefore how much more extra work gets to get funneled through their prefab shop because they're using Siskiyou. And then finally, from David from Cooper Electric in North Carolina, shared with us how much Siskiyou has increased their shop throughput and quality, and how much more work has transferred from the job site to the field. This is really what we're after here, is just to simplify and make the process smooth enough so that more and more work gets to funnel through the shop and less of it has to be exposed to the job site conditions. All right, so why don't we take a look at the Q&A from here. Any questions coming up, Colleen?
Sure. We've got a few questions coming in. Just don't forget to put your questions in the Q&A box on the bottom right of your screen. And while we're waiting for questions to come in, I just wanted to remind everyone that if they want to contact Dave, Doug, or Judy, that they should use the email icons in the BIOS box in the module on the top right of your screen. Or you can fill out the survey at the end of the webinar. So the first question, can you just remind people what programs you were showcasing in the different videos? I think there was a little bit of confusion about that.
Okay, sure. Do you want me to handle this one, Doug?
Sure, yeah, go for it.
All right, so for the most part, the Revit add-in, we're using Revit with Siskiyou. So Siskiyou is a electrical, piping, and sheet metal add-in, and of course we focus on the electrical part of it to Revit. So the platform Revit, the add-in, and the content and the workflows were Siskiyou. In addition to that, Trimble Connect is a companion to that bundle that is the model viewer and data repository app. The only other app that got, there was two other apps that got brought into that. That was Estimation MEP, which is the app that can receive model takeoffs from Revit and conduct estimates. And then Trade Service Supplier Exchange, which is able to price and procure objects from a takeoff. So
Okay.
that's it.
And Connect.
Okay.
Trimble Connect was also included in there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, pardon if I forgot that one. Trimble Connect was the centerpiece of a lot of that. Thank you, Judy.
The next question, is the hanger spool sheet new in 8.3? I assume they mean version 8.3.
Judy, you want to take that one?
Yeah, it's included in version 8.3. The stub 90s are included in version 8.3. And then we have a new spool template as well for the hangers with the graphics, yeah.
Yep, and then also in our 8.3, Judy demonstrated the electrical assemblies that we were doing. Those are new in our SysQ 8.3. And also Judy showed that spool sheet for that as well, so you can get your one table with everything in it to send to your prefab department. And then there was another question from Chris there too, what vendor is the machine saddles for? And then Chris, on that one, it's really not, we seeded our tables with the client and vendor, but you can take whatever vendor you're using, get those values from it, and populate that family with your data. And the same thing for the hand vendor. So where you're using the Greenlee triple nickel or something else, you can populate get the right information in there so your bins are exactly to the way your shop wants them.
Okay. The next question, is your Revit content generic or manufacturer specific?
Happy to take that one. So our Revit content, we have both. We have generic and manufacturer specific. So you can start out modeling in a more generic way, and then you can section up your longer runs, whether it's conduit or duct or pipe, with manufacturer specific content. So we take it right down to the actual manufacturer. So when your project progression, start out modeling generic, and then you can start to add more detail to the model. To the time you're ready to procure, you can get down right to the exact manufacturer you want.
Okay. What are some common difficulties that you see in adopting prefabrication with union?
What was the second part of that question, Colleen? Adopting prefabrication with what?
With union.
I'll take a stab at that one. I think generally there's a concern that if too much productivity happens or if too much work heads to the shop, that will ultimately result in maybe less field jobs or less jobs in total. I'm not sure if that's the intent of the question or not. If it is, I'd say that it just doesn't bear fruit because work gets done. Contractors get awarded much more frequently when they can respond and when they can do more work by adopting better methods. It really increases the jobs and labor productivity. It really doesn't actually come to fruit that being more productive is going to stand in the way of the number of mechanics that can do work. It'll literally just lower the budgets and allow more work to happen. I don't know if anybody else has anything to add to that thought.
I think that covers it pretty good, Dave.
All right, and we have time for just one more question. It is 2:59. So does Trimble Connect come with the VDC Pro subscription?
Yes.
Sure.
Yep. That's part of the strategy too, of providing a toolkit. It's similar to our estimating bundles, which a lot of people may be familiar with as well. If it is fit for the profile of the user, a detailer, they will get Trimble Connect Business Premium, they'll get SysQ, and they'll get the other tools in that bundle. And whenever we come out with better stuff that will fit that profile, it goes in the bundle as well. That's the overarching strategy that we are trying to serve the market with.
All right. Well, with that, I think we should close out the webinar, but I want to thank all three of you for this fantastic presentation. On behalf of Electrical Contractor Magazine and Trimble MEP, thank you to everybody who came to our webinar today. Please don't forget to fill out the survey when it pops up on your screen. It should pop up when I close out the webinar. And be on the lookout in your email for the recording. It should arrive in a few days, if not sooner. So I hope you have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, Colleen.
Thanks, Colleen.
Thanks, Colleen.